Welcome back to another episode of the Entry for One podcast. I'm your host, Jose Hernandez, and on this episode, we will be reviewing and discussing BlacKkKlansman, directed by Spike Lee. On this episode, we're joined by Aaron Cruz.
Hey, how y'all doing? Welcome. Glad to be back.
So, BlacKkKlansman is based on a true story about Ron Stallworth, who is one of the first African American police officers to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. This movie is based in Colorado. The way he's able to succeed to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan is by having a white surrogate that will play double to him and will allow him to successfully get into the local branch that's based out of Colorado. This movie has a lot of good actors. It stars John David Washington, who is, if you haven't figured out yet, Denzel Washington's son. Adam Driver, Laura Harrier, who you might recognize her from Spider-Man: Homecoming if you saw that. It also has people like Alec Baldwin, Robert John Burke, and then another key character who's played by John Bunke. And you even have Michael Buscemi, which is funny because while you're watching the movie, you'll notice this guy looks very familiar. And at first I thought it was Steve Buscemi, and it just threw me off. It's like, that looks...
Buscemi, my brother.
Buscemi.
Yeah,
Buscemi.
I thought it was too. Yeah, it looked just like him, sunken eyes and everything. I was like, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah,
I had to
dude.
look it up, and I found out it was his brother. Holy crap.
Yeah, while I was watching it, and you first get introduced to him, like, he looks very,
He looks
very
just
familiar.
Like him. It's crazy.
And then once I looked it up here in IMDb, I was like, okay, he plays Jimmy Creek, and then I saw his last name. I was like, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, it has some other actors that you might recognize, but as far as main stars, that's who we see in this film. But what'd you think, Aaron?
I haven't watched too many Spike Lee films. I don't even think I've watched Malcolm X. I kind of want to check it out now, but I know Spike Lee's a good director. And actually, it just blew my mind. I didn't know that was Denzel Washington's kid.
Really? You didn't know?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I know him from Ballers, but I never knew that was his
That was
kid.
his son.
I looked around real quick, while you're talking, and I'm like, oh, he's done a lot of movies with his dad.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's been in a lot of movies. He's been Malcolm X. He's been in. There's another movie he was
I
in.
guess when he was a little bit younger.
Yeah, we would have never noticed him.
Yeah.
I thought it was so the overall movie, like I thought it was powerful. I know Spike Lee's probably trying to do well, I know people were probably figuring he might have been trying to do a lot, but with this subject matter, people don't like to put this stuff in their face. They don't want to have their nose put in it. Um, I like how he casually did it, kind of started off with Alec
Subtly.
Baldwin. I thought that was kind of crazy. Um, just kind of laughed because it was Alec Baldwin. But man, I don't know. I liked it. Adam Driver he's developed so much as an actor, and I respect him. John David Washington, a little quieter than I would like. I thought there could have been a lot of character development. There's it had room for it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't mind sitting in the theater for this movie.
Yeah, with Spike Lee going into it, you obviously know you're gonna get some form of
Message.
a movie with a statement. It has something
Yeah.
to say, something to get off its chest. Just like you, I've never really got around to see a lot of Spike Lee's movies. I mean, honestly, the other movie I've seen by him is Inside Man. Inside Man is
Yeah.
the other movie I've seen by him, and I really enjoyed that movie. But as far as that really is not a too much of a political movie, more of just a burglary movie. But with his other movies like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, She's Gotta Have It, and Jungle Fever, I've never really got around to watch those movies. But with this one here, I'm aware of his direction style, and it's very respectable. The way he likes to makes his films. This movie here, I enjoyed it. I mean, you get to see his perspective as far as the Klansmen, and then you see the people that are tired of the Klansmen being able to essentially infiltrate not just their lives but also the government in their local cities, like the police
Mhm.
department. I enjoyed this film. I agree with you. There it does lack some room for character development for most of these characters. We just kind of get them introduced to us without no
No
small,
background,
yeah, no
no.
small type of background or as what led them up to feel this way about these certain individuals. I mean, you can obviously assume why they feel that way, right?
Mhm.
But as far as in the movie itself, what led to that character feeling that way on both sides? Obviously one side is really doesn't have a room to explain themselves why they feel that way, but with the other, at least you can kind of see what their mindset is at personally.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the music. I mean, expecting it. It had a nice little retro vibe going to it. So I really enjoyed the music, soundtrack, score that they put together for this film. I felt that some of the script, specifically for the black actors, wasn't written too well. I felt like in some scenes, this movie, the way it gave the lines to the actors to obviously act it out, it felt kind of rough. It felt like the characters didn't feel it didn't feel executed well on screen, and it just it just didn't really work in certain moments of the film. I mean, out of this movie, I think my favorite actor would be Adam Driver. Like
Mhm.
you mentioned, he's developed into a very deserving actor, and he does a great job in every movie that I've seen him in. From Patterson to obviously Star Wars now, BlacKkKlansman, and yeah, he continues to do really good things.
So like I was curious, you're saying like, the actors it didn't feel well scripted.
Hmm.
Do you think that's maybe what I mean, obviously Spike, his movies, he doesn't do a lot of movies, but when he does them, they're done right, to be honest.
Hmm.
At least in his image. But do
Right,
you think
right.
maybe do you think maybe he wanted it to feel not as like a scripted movie, but more so as they want like kind of we're watching real people talk?
And that's the thing. It didn't feel like I was watching real people talk. It felt like they were. It felt very scripted. It didn't feel natural.
It just felt like they were like reading off lines.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, I get
and
what
I
you're
and I
saying.
agree with you. I do feel like he feels. Well, I would assume he feels that he's writing the way these characters would be acting in real life, respectively.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know if it would be like in a more personal level with these actors, specifically John David Washington and Laura Harrier. I feel like the way they were talking in the movie, like they weren't used to talking that way,
Yeah.
and it reflects a lot of the movie. They weren't talking in slang, but they were just talking not the way they were used to, and you could see it in the movie itself. And it was very noticeable for me, especially with John David's character playing a cop who's also an investigator or trying to play an investigator,
Hmm.
and then having to kind of play two different people in a way. He just kind of feels the same throughout the film, and I just think it's the way, in some form, the script, and then in some form, honestly, it's just personally how they're used to talking and how they were made to talk in the movie, but it just didn't mesh well for me.
Okay. All right.
But other than that, I mean, the actual story itself, there's not a whole lot you can really do with it as far as it's very
Um,
straightforward, right?
yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe. I mean, they're retelling a story that was true. I guess. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very unique story. I was never aware of it or familiar with this story before the actual movie was made. So I was very glad, see something you could say fresh come out in theaters. It's a very interesting story. Double persona you could say, two people working together in effort to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan and essentially bust who's ever participating in these activities and in this group. Set out to create a statement and scare people of color who are in their area.
Yeah.
But the story was fine. I mean, you have, like I mentioned, it's very straightforward. You have the Ku Klux Klan as the antagonist, basically, and then your African Americans who are playing the protagonists, who are tired of the discrimination, being attacked wherever they are, and etc. I'm just tired of this group causing these things to happen to them. I think this movie obviously was made to have some type of conversation,
Yeah, definitely.
and I think in some ways it works very well, especially with John David's character trying to live two worlds almost. He's an African American, but also working as a cop, which most of the African Americans in that setting are tired of the cops getting corrupted and getting meshed in with the Ku Klux Klan. So he's kind of in this world of he wants to make this better, but also make this better, while also having
Trying
to,
to stay black.
yeah, try to stay true to himself and
Yep.
keep it all balanced. So it's interesting to see his character play out. Again, we didn't get a lot of development happen in this film, but for what we got, I think it was a solid movie, and I find myself enjoying it. Other than Adam Driver's character, I mean, I honestly I like John David Washington's character. I think he did a pretty decent job for his first major film. I think. Um, but if I were to say who stood out the most, I would say Adam Driver was
Yeah,
the best
he
actor in
stood
this
out.
film. And that's just only again for that reason that when the script that was given to the black actors it just didn't feel natural in the way they would speak. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Story solid. Something really fresh that we haven't seen. Another Spike Lee joint.
The Spike Lee joint.
It's a
And
great.
I didn't see that at the end. Did you?
I saw it at the beginning.
Oh, really? I might have missed it, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, it's at the very beginning
I love that.
of the movie. Yeah, it's just his own touch.
His own signature, yeah. Spike Lee joint.
But yeah, I mean, I love the story's great. The music's pretty solid. Acting is here and there. The only thing I would have to say is I didn't really enjoy the script all too well. Cinematography was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I hope a lot of people go see this. It's kind of not sad to see, but The Meg did beat it out on its opening weekend.
Crazy. Yeah, I was surprised, honestly.
Yeah,
I
that
was
movie did
almost
really
alone
well.
in the theater. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
Yeah, and I like, you know, I don't know. I was asked if you want to go see Meg, and I was like, no. I mean, who wants to see a dumbass shark?
Yeah,
I
like
don't
I
know.
mean, it looks intriguing. I mean, if I had to pick between the two, I would obviously pick this movie that we're talking about, BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah.
It just did really well, surprisingly, and I don't know might say something. I'm not sure, right?
Yeah.
As far as just people.
Or I don't know, just that does say a lot about our social, like how we are. Like I honestly, again, I just don't think people like this put in their face because like
Yeah, it's
people just
yeah,
like to think it's not non-existent, but really, I mean, he makes good points in the movie, and we just don't see it, and he just kind of showed it to us.
it's right in your face, and some people just
Hmm.
or aren't ready to see something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great installment for his film slate that he's put out, his movies he's made. Just because, like Chirac, which was his movie prior to this, it didn't do too well. So it's nice to see him back in the game with a solid movie. If you haven't seen it, I would really recommend it. It's a great film, and I think you'll enjoy it. Anything else that you'd like to mention before we get into spoilers? I mean, there's not really much things to spoil in a true story, but
Yeah.
um,
No, man. Let's just get into it. Let's get into the story. Get into the thick of it.
all right. So when we first get introduced to Washington's character in the movie, I thought it was interesting on as far as outside of the police station, they had the sign that said, it said either people of color are welcomed, something like that. There was a sign outside the police station, and I just thought it was interesting as far as in that setting and in that time period. Oh,
It was accepted, right?
POC are encouraged.
Yeah.
And then once you find his character inside as a freshman, basically the new guy,
Mhm.
you still see how it's still kind of tense. Still a tense environment for him, and in that environment that he's brought into, what do you think about the entire team as far the team he's given once he first gets into once he convinces them that he can get into the Ku Klux Klan? Because when we see Adam Driver and Michael Buscemi,
Mhm.
they're very go by the book people. I guess they're so used to.
Yeah, they're not used to shaking it up.
Yeah, because of what's his name here. Essentially, who plays the chief in this police department in Colorado, played by Robert John Burkey, Chief Bridges. He's very You can obviously tell he has some ties with
Like KKK
the
or something,
KKK.
dude.
Possibly ties in
Yeah.
with it.
Especially towards the end, kind of answered that.
Yeah, which is so strange. So that's what I was gonna
I
talk.
mean, it was disappointing, and I felt the characters like, damn, man. After all that, fuck, man. Yeah, I felt their frustration with the chief, and that's kind of sucks. Just telling you something.
Yeah, and we get that line from Michael Buscemi's character, which he says, or Washington's character brings up, aren't you guys, shouldn't you guys feel that you should say something about this? And then he says, whether it's good or bad, we're a brotherhood or a family, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then that just kind of like, like,
It kind of
man,
sticks with you. It kind of sticks with you on all levels. Like, you do see that when you're a cop, like you're part of a family, dysfunctional at that, but you're still family. Like that guy's watching your butt if you're in uniform, you know. Um, but then you have the whole left wing with I have something in my notes here about it. The whole left wing with the Patrice, who was the student union, the Black Student Union.
mm-hmm,
She was so left that she couldn't have a relationship with Ron,
mm-hmm,
who was essentially the middle, but he had more left interest.
right,
Um, but you had the right that was so far right, there was no cooperation or anything like that. But you would think Patrice, after everything, even saving her life, spoiler, well, we're already in spoilers,
yeah, you're
but
good.
that he would change her mind and she would accept him, and like they could start a relationship. But later on we find out that no, that's not how it's going to work. Like I don't know how I felt about that. I was like, damn, that's just like, what ignorance. Like, are they as ignorant as the right, like the KKK, because they're not willing to meet in the middle? No one's willing to meet in the middle, and stalwarts stuck in the middle. And that's why the cops kind of have to watch out for themselves, because they're just like those middle guys.
Right. Yeah, it was very interesting to see her character get played out. Because throughout the movie, you do get her mention, are you for the Black liberation? And like he tells her, he very much is. And what's interesting about Washington's character is that, like you mentioned, he's trying to make things better for everyone, right?
Yeah.
He sees the corruption in the police department, so he's willing to put himself out there with all things against him, even his own chief, and he wants to make things right in the police department so they can essentially look out for everyone, right?
Hmm.
Um, so once you see his character start to catch some type of feelings for Laura's character, and then she keeps asking him, if are you a pig? Are you are you with us? Or are you not with us? And he keeps telling her, "I'm for my people." He tells her two things. He said, "I'm for my people, but I'm also wanting to help fix the corruption within the police department." And then she still proceeds to just ignore that. So yeah, her character was quite interesting. Um, it's very hard to compare both sides in this movie, right? Only because they weren't even really called the Black Panthers in this movie. I mean, they were more of a
Yeah, they were a
Black
black
Pride.
student. Yeah, they were a black student union.
They
The
yeah
Black Panthers sent a representative, so the Black Panthers weren't in Colorado.
yeah, which was interesting because I would have liked to at least see some type of unit out there voicing their opinions completely instead of just giving a presentation, right? But whereas the Ku Klux Klan, I mean, they're just a full-on hateful group, right? I mean, there is no
Yeah.
proving themselves right in this scenario. Just because you obviously know, I mean, there is no making whatever they're trying to do right. Whereas this union group, they were essentially tired of the discrimination, right? But it's the
Yeah,
way,
exactly.
specifically Laura's character wasn't open to the conversation as far as with Washington's character, Ron Stallworth, allowing her to see that he was trying to fix both things at once. He wants everything
Mhm.
better for everyone, but she wasn't willing to listen entirely. And it was interesting to see that play out in this movie. Although it didn't entirely contribute to the stakes because they still, although butting heads against each other, they're still around each other.
Yeah, and like Ron was saying in the diner, like, or the restaurant, he said, like, why does everything got to be politics with her? Like, he wants to be with a strong woman, but it's kind of a catch-22 too. A strong woman won't take the crap that she's having to deal with, you know. Um, and that's why the conversation always went to politics.
Mhm.
But Ron again is the middle guy. He doesn't care about the politics really. He just wants to stop bad people. And
Right.
he's a cop. Yeah, he's just a cop. He realizes that there's injustice, especially with his own race, but he's out to stop bad people.
Yeah. Um, and it's interesting about this movie. What I did like about this this moment that we get with this, um, we'll say couple of somewhat, is that it creates some type of conversation, and I really like that as far as maybe it was indirectly or purposefully done by Spike Lee, but it creates this conversation as far as what's the best thing to go about things, and how can we successfully talk about things without entirely isolating oneself from the other. In this movie, what I was trying to get to when I was asking you about how'd you feel about his unit is because after they essentially what they would call successfully um, catch David Duke red-handed, admitting to how he feels about people and how sad he was of this um, bombing that was very unorganized.
Yeah, terrible.
It was carried out super
It is.
unplanned. Um, and then they catch him red-handed, and then you see his team be very excited for Juan Starworth as his accomplishment. But then earlier in the film, they were very sketchy. They had a very sketchy vibe to them, especially Buscemi's character. Because early on, we kind of get the are we really gonna do this, Chief? Are we really gonna
Yeah,
try
he
to
kind of thought.
bust essentially our own in a way?
Yeah, you kind of thought maybe they had some interest in the KKK, which surprised me that nothing popped off. That some hidden hidden people in the department were trying to mess him up at least until the end. I even thought the racist cop who knew they were on the case would open his mouth or something.
Yeah, it's just a lot of characters that had a lot of opportunity to play into the stakes of this movie. I
Mhm.
mean, and even with the stakes, I mean, the highest ones were with between Adam Driver's character and let me get his name right now. Um, where is he
Well,
at?
it's Flip Adam Driver's character.
Jasper. He played Felix Kendrickson, the guy with the
Oh yeah, yeah,
goatee.
yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed his character as far as how well he was able to play the suspicious guy in the group. Every time he would keep questioning Adam Driver's character, are you a Jew? Are you for the white race, etc.
Jeez, yeah.
And he just kept nailing him with a bunch of questions. For example, the interrogation scene when he puts him into the basement and puts a lie detector test on him, and then we have Ron Star Wars throw the brick through the window and then just run away. I mean, I don't know if that was gonna be
I thought that was it.
yeah, the best way to go about things, but in that scenario, I mean, he was willing to kill Adam Driver's character, although I don't really think he would have killed him on sight. I don't think.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, technically, you could have wrote it off anyway. You had a whole bunch of white supremacists in the house. They could have said he tried to break in, anything, but he
It,
would have been a cop. I mean, I don't know. It's weird.
what I would have liked, would have been interesting to see in this movie is having Ron Starworth have to deal more with that cop that was a dick, but almost felt like he was um, part of that Ku Klux Klan corruption,
Yeah.
and just have him deal more with that. So you can see Washington's character struggle with: do I really, do I really want to be part of this police force that's this corrupt?
Mhm.
But his own character, you don't really see a lot of corruption happen through his point of view, having to deal as a cop. He doesn't see a lot of corruption through his eyes as far in the movie. You know, he most of the things go according to plan for him. For example, when we see the cop, who's played by him? Is it Frederick Weller? Yeah, Frederick Weller plays that cop that's a dick, and you see the scene where they pull over Laura's
Oh
character, and
yeah.
they're continuously harassed, and he like grabs her and harasses them basically, and he hears about it and he's upset by it. But would have been interesting if it would have been Star Wars character playing
Yeah.
right along with this guy, and on his first day you see Frederick Weller's character pull over a African American couple, and he sees the harassment in his perspective, and he's just like, man. And that would have created a very interesting scenario for him as far as him second guessing this, but still wanting to better the environment for his people the and clear the corruption that's going on. And I would have really liked to see that in this movie. I think it would have played really well into the story. What'd you think about what's her name? Oh, Connie Kendrickson,
Oh my
the
god.
wife,
That
the wife of Frederick
that
Weller.
was hilarious.
Dude, she was so brainwashed.
Like and it's kind of funny because you don't really see Spike Lee kind of, I don't know how accurate it was, but Spike Lee kind of shows us a relationship like who dates a supremacist or who marries a supremacist. We never see supremacist wives. And I thought it was an interesting like perspective on it, and how, she was even a little bit more racist than, or actually willing to do more than the husband for the
Yeah,
cause. It was kind of funny. Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy. And then, oh my god, the ending scene, kind of the climax, I guess I would say, everything coming together. was pretty powerful when she got all she had to do was scream rape, and these
Yeah,
cops arrested another cop. I was like, what the hell?
yeah, yeah. It
Couldn't
was
even let him get
very
his badge out.
again, like you're mentioning, it's very in the face.
Yeah, and
Um,
the movie does a lot of that, and it's just like, holy crap.
yeah, it kind of it didn't remind me of it kind of did of the like the Get Out
Yes.
ending,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if anyone ever listened to an interview with Jordan Peele, he actually says that in the alternate ending, it was supposed to actually be a real cop that finds him on top of um, Armitage's character, and then as you think about it, it would have ended up bad for Daniel Kaluuya's character because of the assumption of the black guy and then the bloody white girl. It would have just ended bad for him, and he wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to easily explain himself in the moment, right? And that what was so interesting about the Get Out ending that we got is because when you see Kaluuya's character in the ending, and then you see this what you think is a cop car pull up for him, you feel scared for him. You feel this is not going to go down well for him, and that kind of plays out in this movie as well. Oh, we see it actually happen in this movie where all she had to do was play the victim, and he got arrested, and that ended up not ending well for the Ku Klux Klan members who essentially set themselves up because she got scared, couldn't fit the bomb in the
The mailbox.
mailbox.
Yeah, idiot.
She's all freaking out and then puts it in the car or underneath the car
Hmm.
or inside the car, I believe. And once they blow it up, they blow themselves up.
Which is kind of poetic justice, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, it was interesting to see how corrupt you can push someone in a group of that nature.
Yeah,
So
it's like
evil.
poison. You're gonna end up drinking the same water they're drinking.
Exactly.
Speaking of scenes that were powerful, I don't know if I really liked Adam Driver's whole spiel where he's sitting with Stallworth on the table and they're talking about the case, and he said, I can't remember, he was talking about how being around this many racists, he's never actually thought about his Jewish heritage.
Mm.
And I thought that scene was so powerful, and you could see his face, the subtleties in his face, like him realizing like, oh damn, like I'm Jewish and I've been suppressing it this long just to be white, just to blend in with, people.
Mm-hmm.
And that says a lot about our generation. We're just trying to be people. We don't want to be in categories,
Mm-hmm.
but when, haters like the KKK throw it in your face, it's kind of like insulting, and it's hurtful because you don't forget who you are, but you never thought of yourself as that. Like they talk about you so ugly and stuff like that. Not saying it's true, but people just throw that stuff in your face. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see him like saying like, it was just a powerful scene. Um, and that's where I thought Spike kind of missed out on the kind of touching character development. Because Ron Stallworth, I felt as him being the main character, needed a little bit more development. um Maybe talking about how he got, how he finished school. Was it affirmative action, the programs they started back then? um did he work his way up? He said his dad was military, but we didn't really get into the thick of what I wanted to know about him. I think I got more development out of Driver. Even with that scene, it was just so powerful
Mm-hmm.
that I felt like that's why Adam Driver took the show, like the movie. It was a really good scene and kind of set the tone for him as a character.
No, I agree. What's interesting about this movie is because it obviously is set on taking down somewhat of the Ku Klux Klan, right? Busting them in some type of way,
Hmm.
either exposing Duke. But in this film, I think I agree. We missed a lot of Spike. I think Spike Lee missed on showcasing also the black people in this movie, as far as what their stories were behind them. only because we see, like you mentioned, Adam Driver's how he felt about himself after reflecting, as far as I haven't actually thought about my Jewish heritage and who I am, who I truly am, essentially deep down. Whereas in the with the black characters in this movie, not we don't see a lot of them as far as actually being able to have a role in the movie. All you really have is Washington's character and Laura's character,
Hmm.
and then a little bit of where is he at? He was in the Straight Outta Compton movie. Let me find him real quick.
Straight out of Compton.
Um,
Straight
I'll
out
get
of
his name
Compton.
here, but yeah, I just don't think we got a lot of perspective from the African Americans, the black actors in this movie, as far as contributing to the story and what led up to them being this way. Especially, I mean, our lead actor, Ron Stallworth. No, I completely agree, and it might say something about even possibly Ron Stallworth's character in the what led him up to being in the police force.
Yeah.
Maybe just uh, hoping to, I guess, eliminate that idea that you can still be yourself while still trying to better things for everyone.
Hmm. Now,
Um,
as you know, as far as the message of the movie, what were you trying to think? Spike was trying to convey to the audience.
oh, I mean, you can see that in the ending, right?
Yeah.
The specific montage that we get at the very end, just dealing with the specifically pointed at the alt right, and then a little sprinkled in of our current president Donald Trump. The main intention is clear, right? He wants to make you aware that there are still groups like the KKK out there that feel in some way superior and want to have some type of ethnic division between them and others. Like I mentioned, he wanted to make us aware that there's still what happened
So
back then and how it kind of still reflects nowadays in some way, not
yeah,
entirely, but in some way. I mean, what do you think?
it's just like when you really look at it, and he's exactly saying that. When they were describing in the movie how they wanted to take a new approach, they wanted to make something cool. I guess what they were trying to say, like culturally acceptable. They wanted to ease off the violence and become more integrated into politics. That's kind of what Duke was going for.
Right.
Uh, he wanted to be able to maybe run, look as a respected person in politics. Um, and I like how the film drew parallels to the events of last year. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we got in the montage.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't overkill on the humor because this wasn't exactly the subject matter in the movie wasn't exactly something to laugh at, but there was funny moments. Um, I don't think it overkilled on that. Usually movies try to lighten the mood with it, but it was a serious subject, and one of the interesting things I looked into, while doing research, after the movie, is the America First thing. The thing they were chanting. It's just, it kind of, make America great again. It's kind of eerie,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone was chanting it, and it has a stigma to it. It sounds good, but who was saying it? And this goes
Right.
back to
Right.
the Klan's literature that they were using since the 1920s. So you got to really think who are our politicians? Like you really have to think like what are their interests? Like what do they do? Like everyone has skeletons in their closet, and it makes me wonder like where are these they can hide anywhere. In politics that's what they're doing. They're just like inserting people that you would think are normal but have this hate for blending of races, the mixing of races.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's what Spike's trying to convey. He's trying to say, "Hey, wake up, guys! It's not that scary story we used to tell you that that we defeated racism from the by the KKK. They're still out there. You know, they're probably even more dangerous than they were back then. Um, yeah, that's what I think he was trying to say.
No, I mean that's exactly right. It's definitely a movie, um, like we mentioned, that had a lot to get off its chest and bring some reality into people's faces, and how well it parallels to past to present. And it's an important movie that I think whether you are on the left or right, you would at least give it a chance.
Yeah,
Um, as far as if you're so willing for a conversation, whether on the left or the right, it's a movie that doesn't specifically go on either side because there is facts within the movie that can kind of back it up. Um, but particularly with the Klansmen in this movie, like we mentioned, there's no really way to defend their views specifically, but you can see where the black activists in this movie and Union, how they're just tired of the constant discrimination and assumptions made to them throughout that time period, and again how it still kind of parallels to this day and age. And I mean, he made it with Spike Lee made it with a very specific purpose. I think a good purpose, and I think for the most part, this film works very well. If anything, I would have really liked to have a somewhat of a better script given to these characters because I think it could have really shined. Um, I would have loved to see more stakes in this film. It feels as this investigation was. It felt safe, although in reality, I know it must have been super tense for these guys
oh
to
yeah, yeah,
execute it.
definitely.
Because the most tension we really get in this film is where, again, we have Adam Driver's character going through the ropes. Um, but actually executing this must have been a tad more nerve grinding for these guys. I don't want to say it felt easy for them to infiltrate because Adam Driver got questions after questions after questions, but getting into these guys' base in Colorado didn't seem to be the hardest thing to do. And I don't know, that might say something about them. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I think Spike did a good job. It's a very important movie that I think most people willing to give it a chance should check it out. Any last words on it?
Yeah, when you guys go, just be ready to be enlightened. It's a very, it makes you a little bit tense. Kind of wakes you up to some of the problems we're still having, and sheds a light of things that happened last year. And pretty much, it's going to be the anniversary, I believe, of those issues that happened last year. But great movie. Another excellent movie by Spike. Well done, and hope to see something from him soon.
Actually, I forgot about a scene I wanted to talk really quickly,
Yeah, go ahead.
which was the basically like the third to last scene where we get oh, we do. I forgot about this. We do get John David Washington's character bust Frederick Weller's character, don't we? They give him a call and oh no, it was in the bar and Washington is in there celebrating, and then he gets harassed again by Frederick Weller's character.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
And then
lock him down. Yeah.
he's all mic'd up and he catches him saying all this. I believe he tells him you're lucky. I don't catch you alone, or he threatens him in some way, and then he gets busted, and then you get the chief come out of the back
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 room.
office,
Yeah.
and he's over here celebrating and gives John David Washington's character a like a high five and everything, celebrating. And then the next scene, we get him telling Ron Stallworth that they're gonna have to stop all investigation on the Ku Klux Klan, and this never happened. And
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of interesting. I'm not sure why they even felt like in the movie's perspective why that scene would work, only because it goes against completely the persona that we've gotten from Chief Bridges' character, where he first allows Ron Stallworth to go through with this, but then forces him to be the bodyguard for Duke. And then at the end, we get the celebration, all happy, good for you, Ron Stallworth. And then at the end, we get him asking him to stop all investigation, which is kind of just weird. And it kind of, because obviously, you're saying, hey, he's a corrupt chief, but then why would he want to bust one of his own, especially one of his very close police officers? All I could really think of was him wanting to have some good press of him, on the
Oh yeah.
newspaper. Chief bus racist law enforcement agent in his unit. Can't you see? He's not racist. He's doing good
Kind
things
of
in
get him
the
off the scent.
yeah. He's doing good things for our city. And then when you think about it, it's like he could probably. Although he was close with this police officer, he's probably just gonna catch him at the next Sunday meeting.
Mm-hmm. And
So
another, now that we're bringing back scenes, the ending scene with the cross burning, a lot of people speculated that maybe that's the cop that got arrested and now he's part of the KKK,
hmm.
because a lot of things that you can say that those clan members have in common is that they all have had negative interactions with black people.
Hmm.
And maybe that pushed him over there. He was already racist. They will accept him with open arms.
And no, that's true. I was gonna ask you about the ending really quickly. Should it have ended with him coming back to the telephone and basically calling David Duke and pranking him, or should it have ended?
If it were true, yeah,
Or
because we're doing a true story. If it wasn't, then I'd be like, why?
yeah,
Like, why? I would have just, kept the lie going, disappeared. That's it. And he went to Dallas or El Paso to go take care of his dad, and that was the last we heard of him.
yeah, because in a movie sense, I mean, it would have been interesting to have it end with them with that iconic, because that's what Spike is known for, is that two shot of the characters with the background just moving while they're continuously going forward, and then you have that cross burning at the end. Um, I don't know. Like you said, if it's a true story, we could have stuck with that. I thought it was interesting that he even went back to answer the phone.
Oh yeah.
Because after his investigation gets broken up, I would have felt like his character would have been like, why should I go back to this police station? But I guess he hesitates, thinking, what if that is David Duke calling Ron Stallworth and apologizing as far as how things happened and how unsuccessful things were. But then he hits him with the, well, what if I told you Ron Stallworth was police a police officer, and he just stands there in disbelief, and they're all celebrating. The ending
Yeah.
was interesting. I don't know. That's the only thing I really have any other issue with is the script, and the ending was kind of interesting. How the way it aligns with the characters, or how what it led up to that character going back to the police station that sure gave him an opportunity, but also broke up everything he's worked for. But yeah, I mean, again, I enjoyed this movie. I would really recommend people to go out watch this movie and give it a chance because it really deserves it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um,
I don't know why there wasn't more attendance.
yeah. I would have really loved to see the response. I mean, I know it's not a comic book movie, but with its story and what it brings up, getting more of a attendance.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, hopefully it finishes strong. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I think that would do it for this episode. Where can they find you on social media?
Well, Twitter is always a good spot. I know I've been mentioning my Twitter, but let's see if we get some hit on my Instagram. Just hit me up at Cruiser6112 over there on my Instagram.
And what was your Twitter?
Cruise6112.
Okay. Um, you can find me on Twitter primarily at Video Josue. But most importantly, you can find us on social media, specifically Twitter and Instagram at Entry for One. We are now on YouTube as well, so
Choo, choo,
if you
choo.
want to listen it to on there, you can go on YouTube, just search up Entry for One, and you'll find us there. But you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Music. Other than that, thank you for listening.